So here at the Menkaure Pyramid, the casing stone, which is red granite from Aswan, brought 500 miles from the quarry. It's about at least 2 feet thick, so it's not like a thin veneer layer. It's at least 2 feet thick. Again, there's Khafre Pyramid in the background. A lot of knobs on these stones on the outside, very similar to what we see in Peru. And the indigenous story is similar, again, to what we find in Peru. And that is that the knobs there were for the tuning of the wall, because this wasn't simply a functional thing. If this and these were indeed ancient power plants and vibratory structures, then it kind of makes sense that you would have to tune the exterior in order to achieve the vibration or harmonic that you were after. At least that is a more, I think, logical explanation than the idea that those knobs were there to help lift the stones, because a lot of the biggest ones don't have any knobs on them. And then it's on this side we see the little pyramids. You can clearly see how the entire exterior of granite has been stripped off one of these baby pyramids. Again, the Khafre one here.
Oh no, I'm not doing it.
And the whole area is strewn with the remains of cannibalization of an ancient structure in ancient areas by later people. And before you say, oh my God, isn't that awful, how could they do this? Remember, these buildings are a minimum of around 4,000 years old and could be much older. Over that period of time, cultures come, cultures go, and especially later cultures who arrive and have no comprehension as to the significance of the original constructions. They look at these things as simply quarries. You don't only find that in Egypt, you find that in Peru and throughout the Middle East, I'm sure, and many places in the world. So the Great Pyramid in the background here on the Giza Plateau, and you see this is the solid bedrock, sandstone. Most likely these are crypts or caves carved into the bedrock itself. And what this looks like is a little pyramid. And what you see on the right hand side, you see how the shaped sandstone blocks interlock with the original bedrock itself, because you see all of these indentations here made so that the blocks would fit in, like they're trying to lock in a three-dimensional way the stone, introduced stone, with the bedrock itself, and that of course makes the structure a lot stronger. And where we're heading now is towards the Sfinx and Sfinx Temple. I made a mistake. That's not the Great Pyramid, that's Menkaure, because here we have the second pyramid in the background, Khafre, and the Khufu one, the big one, great one here. And with the limestone, you can see that there's no real obvious evidence of mortar in between the limestone blocks. Limestone's not that hard a stone, relatively, but it's a lot harder than these piles of adobe. And the bottom line, of course, is the fact that the oldest construction is the finest. And where we find lack of mortar or cement-like material to glue the stones together. That is the oldest. The newer stuff, as in 2,000 years old, that's where you find mortar. Much more difficult to construct a building without mortar than with, because the stones have to fit perfectly in place. How's that for a view in the background? This is inside the Sfinx temple, and this block of gray-black granite is perfectly vertically level. And it's similar to some of the stuff we see in Peru, because you see the corners, a lot of the stones are rounded over like that for strength. This is all basically red granite. Perfectly level. And you can see the weathering at the bottom that looks like that would have been the result of water. But we had Chris Dunn here with his gauge, which is accurate over 1 foot to within 1/10,000th of an inch, and this surface was that flat. This is only a preliminary look at the Sfinx temple because we will be coming back. We have to kind of race through today. But here too, even with the weathered surface, you can see half of a degree off of level. That's because of it looks like water weathering. Here, 0.2 degrees off of being perfectly level. So for those of you who may never get a chance to come to Egypt, this gives you a brief look into the Sfinx temple. This is one of the pits. Could have actually been one of the water channels, because the thing is that the whole Sfinx, or the whole Giza complex, is filled with tunnels, horizontal and vertical tunnels that were probably what were used to conduct water in ancient times, when the pyramids were the energy generating things that they were. So stay tuned for future updates as we progress through this journey, but unfortunately we're always have to race through some of these on our first day in order to get a brief look at what some of this stuff looks like. Sfinx.